There is a crowd watching you right now. They are watching what career you choose. They are watching whether you succeed or fail. They are watching if you start that business or not, or make that unconventional decision. They are tracking all of it. At least this is what your brain tells you. Here is the truth that most people never confront: the crowd is not watching, it never was. And the moment you die, because you will die, we all die, the world will continue without missing a beat. And your absence will be, for almost everyone outside of your closest circle, invisible. Life will go on, and Tuesday will still be a Tuesday. This is not a dark thought. This is one of the most liberating truths that you will ever hear. Because if no one is really watching, and if the audience you have been performing for your entire life is just largely a fiction in your head, then what exactly are you so afraid of? The ancient Rome had a practice. They would celebrate when a general returned from a victorious war, and they would parade throughout the city full of glory, crowds cheering, laurels in their head, and the entire empire is celebrating. But standing directly behind them in the chariot was a slave hired for one purpose only: to whisper three words over and over again into the general's ear: Memento Mori, which means remember that you will die, not as cruelty or not to diminish the victory, but to keep the general grounded in reality, to prevent the intoxication of status from distorting their thinking. And we have lost this practice, and we are paying for it. Most people are not living their lives, they are managing the perception of their lives. Every decision is filtered through an invisible question: what people will think, what people will say, what people will conclude about me. And slowly, invisibly, that question becomes the architect of your entire existence. The psychologists have a name for what's happening inside you every time you hesitate. They call it the spotlight effect, and it is a cognitive bias, a systematic error in human thinking where we dramatically overestimate how much attention other people are paying to us. We assume that our failures are being noted, that our embarrassments are being cataloged, that our unconventional choices are being judged. The research is consistent. The spotlight is almost entirely in our head, and people are not actually watching you. They are drowning from their own lives, their own anxieties, their own insecurities, their own internal monologues, and they do not have the bandwidth to closely monitor your decisions. And you have been living carefully to protect a reputation, inside of minds that are too preoccupied to even notice you. And this is the trap, not laziness, not lack of talent, not missing information or the wrong strategy. Like the trap is spending your finite life performing for an audience that is not even in their seats. Because there is a thought experiment worth sitting with, and scientists tells us that in the final minutes of our life, as the brain loses oxygen, something remarkable happens. The memory activates with extraordinary intensity. People report experiencing a rapid, vivid replay of their own life, not in chronological order, but in emotional order. The moments that matter the most. So, what will your replay look like? Because there are two versions of life. There is a version of you lived for yourself, the messy, the uncertain, full of bold choices and real failures and genuine moments. And there is also a version of you lived for the audience, careful, managed, optimized for approval, and rich in safety but poor in meaning. And only one of those version produces a replay worth watching. The tragedy is not dying because everyone dies. The tragedy is arriving at that moment with a highlight reel of the things that you did not do because you were afraid of what people would think, people who were too busy living their own lives to ever really notice. So, what do you do with this? Not a list of life hacks or not a morning routine, but simpler and harder than that. You remember that you will die, not as a morbid obsession, but as a daily recalibration, because the Romans were right. We need the reminder because without it, the comfortable illusion reasserts itself, like the imaginary audience fills back in. And when you go back to making decisions based on the perception that no one is actually forming, when you feel the hesitation, when you are about to stop yourself from the thing that you actually wanted to do, ask this question: if I knew that no one was watching, would I still be afraid? Because usually the answer is no, and the fear collapses when you remove the imaginary audience. What remains is either a legitimate practical concern which can be solved or nothing at all. And there is something worth understanding. Physics tells us that energy cannot be created or destroyed, it can only be transformed. So every effort you make, even the ones that do not work, gets converted into experience, into skill, into the version of you that is capable of what comes next. So no genuine effort is wasted, it is only transformed. Memento Mori is not a pessimist philosophy, it is a realist gift. It strips away the fiction, it removes the imaginary audience, and it returns you to the only thing that is actually real. It's the time you have and the choices you make with it, and the life that you build when you realize no one is watching. If you want to pursue something that is not making sense on paper, go. If you want to start over, go ahead. If you want to build something that might fail, still go. Because here is what fear never tells you: when you die, it's going to be a regular Tuesday for almost everyone you know, and the only audience left in that room will be you. So you have to make sure that the 7 minute replay is a life that was actually lived, not a performance, a life.